Good morning. I'm back to finish up the topic of sexual selection with this second video. And I want to pick up with intersexual selection again, and this is going to be the primary topic of this video, talking about the origin of female choice and some of the hypotheses that have been proposed to try to explain it. Why does it happen? Why do females typically choose their male mates in this type of selection called intersexual selection? So let's start out with, why are females more choosy than males? Several reasons for this. Choosiness, less eggs, less reproductive propagules, a lower fecundity. Eggs are more energetically costly to produce, and if you remember from Biology 101, when an ovum or an egg is produced by meiosis, there are usually four, but only one typically becomes a functional egg or ovum. The other three disintegrate, so females have a lower fecundity. Males produce sperm throughout their life and often want to, if possible, mate with as many females as possible. For a male, it's more quantity driven. For a female, it's more quality driven due to the fewer gametes. If a female chooses a poor mate, her future offspring down the line, a few generations away, may suffer lower fitness also. So fitness can be reduced by choosing a poor male mate. So males are more quantity driven, numbers. Females are more quality driven, best genes, if you will, or at least that's the thought, that choosing a male with the best genes will increase the fitness of the female's offspring in generations to come. So the next question then, science is all about asking questions. How does a female choose a male that has the best traits? This origin of female choice is often explained with a hypothesis, not a theory now, but a hypothesis called the sensory exploitation hypothesis, that there are genetic preferences, intrinsic, inborn preferences within females for male characteristics that are preferred by her. So females have intrinsic preferences for certain characteristics in males, and males will exploit these sensory systems in females to acquire mating opportunities with the female. The photograph below this text is of the length of a fish called a swordtail and the preference of the tail length by females for mating opportunities. So the longer the tail, the more likely a female is to select that male as a mate. In an experiment that was done with swordtails, the researchers constructed a unnatural but a very long tail and attached it to the back, the caudal fin of a male to create an unnaturally long tail, and females preferred that experimentally formed male over natural males and their tail length. So tail length is actually one thing that females prefer in males. And we're not referring to or talking about humans in this lecture here. We're referring to non-human animals. So females do tend to have a predisposition for a long tail in the non-human world. So this is referred to again as the sensory exploitation hypothesis, that males will exploit the sensory systems of females to attain breeding privileges with them. Us bad males, aren't we? So, another hypothesis toward female choice is called the sexy son hypothesis. And this idea, females will select a physically attractive male, because of a perception that it will enable her future sons to have the best fitness. So the physical attractiveness of the male is a preference, that it provides her future sons the best opportunity to have the most offspring. The sexy son hypothesis. Another type of idea toward female choice is that sexual selection will favor the exaggeration of a trait by a male because it is desirable to the female. And this is referred to as runaway sexual selection or runaway selection. It was proposed by the statistician R.A. Fisher as an alternative to the good genes hypothesis, that females select males based upon genes that they have that would provide the highest level of fitness to the female's offspring. In this case, it's a sensory exploitation concept that males will exaggerate a non-sexual trait because females prefer it. And that trait is called runaway selection. Again, long tail length, bright, non-camouflage colors are often considered in this concept of runaway selection. You see the male peacock on the right as an example with his really long tail feathers, and they're really bright color on the head and the neck. So another concept here then toward this female choice is that females choose males that have non-sexual characteristics, and these non-sexual characteristics are used as an indication of good genetic stock. One example of the good genes model is called the handicap principle. And I've got a couple slides coming up about the handicap principle, that males that can survive with a long tail or very bright colors that may handicap them toward increased predation, that these handicaps, if the male can survive with them, that undoubtedly it confers to the female that he is of good genetic stock. And a male with a long tail or bright colors may be chosen at a higher rate by a female due to this perception that he has good genes. So, good genes. Females will choose a male that has some sort of trait that is an indicator to the female that the male has good genetic stock, and the male will be chosen, more often and not at random. So the indicator hypothesis means that there are traits that are an indicator to the female that the male has good genes. As one indicator might be physical attractiveness. And this type of indication is called the sexy son hypothesis. So you might notice how a lot of these ideas about intersexual selection and female choice all revolve around characteristics within the male. They're not sexual characteristics, but they're physical traits, non-sexual characteristics that are chosen for and elaborated by the male, because the female is thought to have a sensory system that prefers them. So, the handicap principle. If a male can survive predation and an increased chance of predation with a large tail or a bright coloration or maybe some ornamentation on its head, that male confers that he has good genes. That's called the handicap principle, that the bright colors or ornamentation is a handicap and an increased likelihood of predation. And surviving with these handicaps actually indicates good genes to the female. This has been shown with an experiment on a bird that lives in Africa called the long-tailed widow bird. The researchers did the same thing as in the swordtail. They created a longer tail, attached it to some of the male birds, and you notice in these widow birds that the male is black with red and yellow on its wings. The female is brown, kind of cryptically colored. The male is much more brightly colored and not camouflaged compared to the female. But if they increase the tail length of the male from the natural condition, the control, and if they shorten the tail of the male and had those two treatments, then the shortened tail had the fewest number of nests, and the elongated or the longest tail that was experimentally formed had the highest number of nests compared to the control in the middle. So females tend to have a preference for long tail, not only in fish but also in birds. Lastly, health. How healthy is the male mate? And there are several ideas that have developed about female choice based upon the health of the male mate. One of them is called the Hamilton-Zuck hypothesis, and this is the ornamentation on the head, maybe the antlers, the comb of a male bird, that the ornamentation on the head will be larger if the male is healthier, and females will prefer a male that has larger ornamentation on its head. That's called the Hamilton-Zuck hypothesis. The data in the chart below shows that a male will have a smaller ornamentation on its head if it has more parasites on its body, and that male will be chosen less than a female that has larger ornamentation and fewer parasites. And that concept leads right to the healthy mate theory that states that females will choose the healthiest mate that they can because it will be less likely that pathogens, parasites, would be passed on to their future offspring. So lots of concepts out there about the origin of female choice and why females choose males as their mates in the way that they do. So intersexual selection is as is intrasexual selection, male-to-male competitions. It's a very interesting type of natural selection in the way that non-sexual characteristics develop in males as they are preferred and selected for by females. So it's a very interesting topic, and how these structures develop in both of the sexes and how they're shaped over time by natural selection. So I hope that's an interesting topic. It would be covered in Dr. Clooney's animal behavior class in more detail than what I did. So I'm going to move on now to how these characteristics lead to mating systems. Y'all take care. Goodbye.